Chapter 27, The Farewell of the Islanders. I took one last look around the loft. This was my dad's childhood room on the day I arrived on the island, but over the course of the summer, the small space became my room. I looked over the long shelves filled with my dad's collection of treasures, and mixed among them were my own. There was the row of books I'd read too. My journal lay on the wooden desk next to my dad's. And the big round window. My Heidi window, I thought. So many nights I lay on my back and stared out of it, noting the stage of the moon, counting the stars, watching the clouds drift by. In the mornings, I observed birds flying from tree to tree, and every day I sent out silent prayers for my dad to survive and come home. I zipped up my duffel, picked up my bag, and climbed down the ladder for the last time. Lucky was waiting for me, as always. His tail wagged and his dark eyes were fixed on me, ears alert. He knew something was up. Honey was in the kitchen. The countertops were shiny, and a vase of fresh flowers sat on the table. The air smelled of fresh baked cookies she'd made for Dad's arrival. I grinned. Things sure had come a long way since day one. I might be leaving, but the Honey I knew and loved was back. I sent my duffel bag by the front door. I noticed a box of books resting there. What are the books for? I asked. Honey spun around. Good morning, sunshine. Special day. I saw that her eyes were moist from crying. Honey, are you okay? Of course I'm okay, she replied with a short laugh. She sniffed. These are just a grandmother's tears for the grandchild she's going to be missing. I rushed to her side to give her a big hug. I'm going to miss you too, but I'm not going far, remember? I'll come for visits, lots of them. She wiped her nose with a tissue. You're right, of course. These are happy tears. I see a lot of boat trips off the island in my near future. She dabbed at her eyes. I've just gotten used to having you here every day, and this furry guy too, she said, stroking the top of Lucky's head. Lucky gave a wide smile, letting his tongue flop out. Honey laughed at that, then sniffed and straightened. I just have to remember we've got lots of work, got lots to look forward to. Just think, Jake, we can celebrate all the holidays together. Maybe some right here on Deweese. She nudged me like she was telling me a secret. Guess what? I'm having an elevator installed here for you, for your daddy. That's great. For sure he'll come. That's the plan. I looked over at the box of books again. But what's up with the books? They're all your research and guidebooks. You're not giving them away, are you? I'm coming back. I'll need them. I'm not giving them away, Honey assured me. Not exactly. You inspired me, Jake. After we spent so many hours this summer looking up animal and plant facts for your journal, it occurred to me that there were many children who might want to learn the names of the wildlife when they visit. Adults, too. I have the books and a lot of time. And her eyes sparkled. I'm donating the books to the Nature Center, and I'm going to be the librarian. I'll volunteer for a few afternoons a week. I'll take care of the collection, help adults, and teach kids of all ages. Who knows, I might even start an island journal club. That's a great idea, I said, and meant it. You're perfect for the job. You're the best teacher I've ever had. Her face softened, and she playfully wiped a lock of her hair from my forehead. You certainly were my favorite student. Honey glanced at her watch. Look at the time. We best get going. We don't want to be late for the ferry. I felt I could fly down the stairs. I was so excited. This was the day I'd been waiting for all summer. My parents were coming. We loaded up the golf cart with my duffel bag and Lucky's supplies. I tapped the bench seat for Lucky to jump aboard. Good boy, I said, giving him a big hug. As we pulled away, I turned and looked out at the bird's nest one last time. My house high in the trees, I thought. Late afternoon light glowed across the windows, and leaves from the trees rustled in the wind as though they were waving goodbye. Honey drove in her wild and crazy style to the boat landing. She still managed to hit most every rut in the road. I gripped onto Lucky with one arm and held tight to the edge of the cart roof with the other. We were all smiling. Look, honey, I called, and pointing to the covered wooden ferry dock landing. I couldn't believe it. It was decorated like it was the 4th of July all over again. Red, white, and blue bunting hung from the railings, and American flags lined the cart parking zone. A huge sign was stretched across the floating platform. Welcome home, Captain Potter. Oh my, was all Honey said. A small crowd of people from the island gathered at the dock. I spied Chief Rand, then Macon and Lovey. They waved when they spotted me and ran across the gravel to greet us. Guess we're not the only ones excited to see your dad, Macon said. Emotion clogged my throat, so I could only offer a tight-lipped grin. My stomach started flip-flopping like a fish on a hook, knowing that the ferry was on its way with my mom and dad on board. It was going to be a short visit. The plan was to celebrate with Honey at the Nature Center. There was an elevator there. We had to face the harsh fact that my dad couldn't get inside the bird's nest. Then, after the party, my parents and I would catch an outgoing ferry. We were going to live in a temporary condominium near the base. Mom said we would make do until they found someplace better. I didn't care what the house looked like. I'd be with my mom and dad again. Now this is a hero's welcome, Aunt Sissy said, giving Honey a hug. You must be so proud, Lovey said. Her blonde hair was parted into two long braids, each with blue ribbons that matched her shirt. What's that? I asked, pointing to an envelope in her hand. She leaned closer and smiled shyly. It's the letter. My eyes got big. For your dad? My bio dad, she clarified, but she was smiling. This was her big summer moment. Well, what are you waiting for? Macon asked. Put it in the mailbox. I was just going to, she said, lifting her chin. Then do it, Macon said. What's the hurry? Tick-tock. Guys, I called out and rolled my eyes in exaggeration. Stop arguing. We all burst out laughing. Lovey lifted her chin and walked across the dock to the mailbox. Her long braids waved in the air behind her. She looked over her shoulder at us. Then she gave the envelope a quick kiss and dropped it into the outgoing mail slot. She didn't turn around right away. Macon leaned close to me and whispered, do you think she'll hear back? I sure hope so. I mean, it's Lovey. He'd be one crazy dad not to write back, right? Yeah, Lucky trotted around the main dock, greeting everyone with a wagging tail. The anticipation on the dock was mounting by the minute. Here he comes, someone from the crowd shouted. In one movement, all heads swung to look out beyond the field of marsh grass to the sea. I stretched up on my tiptoes and caught a glimpse of the white double-decker ferry coming straight toward us. My heart pounded against my ribs. I tried to remember what it had felt like the first day I'd been on the ferry alone, coming to the island. Honey was standing where I was at this moment. Was it really 2 months ago? I thought that the summer would last forever. Now the ferry was carrying my mom and dad to the island. My summer vacation was over. It went so fast. I scanned the crowd. Where was Honey? I spied her walking up the landing with Macon's parents, their baby, and Lovey's aunt. Honey, they're almost here, I called out, waving my arms. Then I turned and ran through the crowd, down the metal plank to the floating dock, Lucky at my heels. The ferry blew its horn. Bwang, bwang, the people waiting at the dock burst into cheers. The big boat's motors chugged and gurgled as the captain brought the ferry in. I felt the vibration through the wood. I arched up but couldn't see anyone yet, only the American flag flapping on a pole. Feelings of love, excitement, worry, relief, and fear slapped inside of me like the salty water that splashed the dock. My stomach was so tight I felt a little sick. I spread my feet wider to steady myself on the floating dock, rocking with the boat's arrival. Would it be weird to see my dad again after so long? What would he look like without a leg? Should I hug him? Could I? I felt Honey's hand on my shoulder. I looked up and smiled at her. Her happiness helped me feel better. At last the ferry docked, and the captain opened the doors and stepped off the boat onto the dock. He searched me out, gave me a big wink, and called out, "You ready to see my special guests?" "Yes, sir." Lucky jumped into his paws, his tail wagging. The first mate jumped off the boat to help the captain lay a board down across the threshold of the boat to the dock. Mom stepped off first and started walking up the dock toward me. She was wearing her green flight suit. Her brown hair was neatly pulled back in a bun, and her smile was wide and bright. She looked thinner and tired, but happy. I couldn't hold back. I ran straight to her, with Lucky at my heels. In a rush, I felt her arms around me, felt her lips on my head. I squeezed hard. She smelled like Mom. "I missed you so much," she said to my ear. She said close to my ear. "Me too," I choked back. She pulled back to look me in the eyes. "Are you ready?" I squeezed my lips tightly and nodded nervously. Mom returned to the boat. A moment later, a man stepped out. He stood a moment, getting his balance on the rocking deck. I squinted in the bright afternoon sunlight, trying to make out each detail of the man I had pictured in my mind these past months. He was the same tall build, but a whole lot thinner. He was dressed in his military uniform. Dad made his way slowly down the wooden gangplank, gripping a black cane. Once he was on the dock, applause erupted from the crowd. My dad smiled, but his eyes were searching the crowd. Then his gaze landed on me. He took one step, then another step, carefully walking toward me on the dock. My mom followed close behind him. I couldn't help myself. I looked at his legs. I caught a glimpse of shiny metal underneath his tan military pants. I swallowed hard and tried to still my shaking lips. Here's the truth. My dad was always athletic. He moved gracefully, smoothly. This man walked slowly, tentatively. Anyone could see that each step was a major effort. I cringed. Then my father was standing in front of me. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I looked away. "Jake," he said. I knew his voice. My gaze inched up from his chest, his shoulders, his neck, and finally into his eyes. They were the same blue. I saw the shape of his face, the lines of his cheekbones, his straight nose, his brown hair cut high and tight. I knew the space. Dad, I cried out. He dropped his cane and I felt his arms around me. I couldn't hold my tears. I smelled the sweat in his wool military jacket, felt the stubble on his cheek, and best of all, his arms around me. All the fears and worries blew away on the sea breeze. No matter what, he was still my dad. Lucky gave a single bark. Dad released me with a husky laugh and looked down at my dog. I'm guessing this furry guy must be Lucky. It felt so good to hear his voice sound so normal. I wiped at my eyes. Yep, isn't he cute? I replied, patting Lucky's head. Dad stuck his hand out in greeting. Lucky sniffed, then licked his fingers and nudged his head underneath Dad's palm. Dad smiled. Score, I thought. I wanted them to be friends too. My turn. Honey stepped forward and slipped her arms around her son. I felt my mother's arm around my shoulders. In that moment, I knew that everything was going to be all right. We were a family. We were together. That was all that mattered. The party was a big success. Everyone was so happy to see Dad again. A lot of them had known him since he was my age. Macon and Lovey were a little shy to meet him. After all, his journal had loomed large in our minds all summer long. It was like he was our Obi-Wan Kenobi guiding us with his words. Dad, I said, waving Macon and Lovey closer. These are my friends. Nice to meet you, Lovey said, offering her hand. How do you do, sir? Macon said, clearing his throat. Dad smiled at them. You're the Dawn Patrol. I feel like I already know you. Macon and Lovey smiled. You're blessed to find one good friend in life, he said to us. You found two. It's wise to count your blessings. You inspired us to write journals, Lovey said. Did I? Dad looked at me. I grinned. Yeah, Honey gave us all journals to write in. Lovey's a real good artist, and Macon is Mr. Google. He collected great facts. And you? He asked. I shrugged. I'm pretty good at drawing, but not so good at writing. I wrote you letters instead. I told you what I was doing and seeing. I shrugged again, self-conscious. It was more fun. I disagree with you. My smile fell. Dad grinned. I think you're a very good writer. I have something to show you. He reached into his bag and pulled out a brown leather-covered book. He handed it to me. I carefully took the book and ran my hands across the smooth brown leather. On the front, my name had been painted in red, white, and blue. Jake Potter. It looked like my dad's journal. You've got me a journal? Open it. I opened my book slowly with awe. The pages were already filled with handwriting and drawings. Bringing the journal closer, I recognized the workmanship. It was my handwriting, my drawings. I looked up at him puzzled. These are my letters. Dad nodded. I saved them, all of them. I had them bound into a book. He moved his hand to gently squeeze my shoulder. Jake, your letters gave me hope, your encouragement, your tales from the island, your infinite faith. Son, you saved my life. The sun was setting by the time the crowd left. Brilliant orange, purple, and gold spread across the water to shimmer. The end of this perfect homecoming had arrived. Now it was time to go. My parents boarded the ferry first. Lucky was leashed and pranced by my side. He didn't want to get left behind. It was all over but the goodbyes. Macon and Lovey walked with me to where the ferry met the dock. They couldn't go any farther. I guess that's it, I said, stuffing my hands into my pockets. After a summer of nonstop talking, no one could find a word to say. My gaze swept the expanse of the bright green marsh that met the towering wall of trees. I smelled the pungent pluff mud, felt the ocean's breeze on my cheek. It hit me hard that I was leaving Dewey's Island. I wouldn't wake up in my loft tomorrow morning, wouldn't do my dawn patrol, or take the golf cart out to do my chores and meet my friends. I wouldn't go exploring or show my journal to Honey. I swallowed hard. This might sound like a surprise coming from a military kid, but I don't like saying goodbye. It's not really a goodbye, Macon said. You're going to live in Charleston. That's totally cool. I bet you'll be over here visiting Honey a lot, Lovey said. Then she said coyly, I'll be visiting my Aunt Sissy, too. Y'all are lucky. You get to come back. I gotta head back to Atlanta, Macon said, but Mom said we'll come back during breaks if the island house isn't rented. She promised that we'd definitely stay here next summer. You better, Lovey said empathetically. We made a pact to spend next summer together. That's right, I added, smiling at my two best friends. Hey, guys, Lovey said, spreading out her hands like she was about to make a big announcement. I, know this is last minute, but I came up with the perfect name for us. We looked at her. Our name? I asked, confused. Yes, for us. You know, the Three Musketeers, Lewis and Clark, the Water Rats, Dawn Patrol. She made a loop with her finger, and on, you know. Macon and I looked at each other and shrugged. What you got? Macon asked. She took a breath for effect. The Islanders. She looked at us expectantly, her brows raised. I thought of how this lush green island had opened me up to the mystery of nature. This island, a place I didn't want to go, had become a second home to me. I was leaving feeling stronger than when I'd arrived, unafraid to face my next adventure, and the island was where I met my best friends. It's perfect. I held out my hand. The Islanders. Levy placed her hand over mine. The Islanders. Macon slapped his big hand over ours. The Islanders. We threw up our united hands up in the air victoriously. Bamp! The ferry boat sounded its horn, and the big engines began to churn. The captain yelled out, "All aboard!" Macon gave a big bear hug. Then he stepped back. "See you, bro." "Yeah, soon," I said. Then, feeling tongue-tied, I turned to Lovey. She was clutching her turtle necklace, which told me she was nervous or upset. "Take good care of the turtle nest for us," I said, feeling awkward. She looked at me, her cheeks turning pink under her freckles. She rushed forward to hug me. Then she kissed me right on the cheek. Then, with a quick smile, she turned heel and rushed away and disappeared in the crowd. Macon and I looked at each other, our eyes wide. Then Macon high-fived me and burst into a wide grin. Next year is going to be the best summer ever. The end. I hope you enjoyed the book The Islanders. Check out the next book called The Islanders Search for Treasure. Enjoy your summer.